It's time for the news. 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 The news? No. It's time for the PerTspective. That's what it's time for. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the PerTspective. Hey, this is going to be an episode today. This is not going to be an introduction. We're going to actually do an episode. We're going to actually show you guys some clips. We want to thank you again for joining us here at Godsmack Studios. I'm here kind of chilling today. I wasn't going to do anything, but I decided, you know what? Let me try and explain what I've been posting so that people can have a weekend to start thinking about these things. I usually just post stuff and I just let you guys just go with it. No, not this time. We're gonna roll some clips. Well, not really clips. We're gonna show some things. And that way, I'm gonna take some time to explain to you what I've been posting so you can have a better understanding of what you're seeing. See, as the PerTspective just finished up the audit, there are a lot of things I'm starting to notice that, guys, you know these things. You've heard these things. They've told you about them. And for some reason, the puzzle is not fitting together. So I'm going to try and help you guys with the puzzle fitting together today. So this is just kind of, me kind of freestyling it away, and I'm doing it. I'm producing it. I'm going to control it. So let's get right into it. So we want to discuss racism. And I know everybody's talking about racism. America's been racist for years and years and years, and blah, 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 and yada, yada, yada. And black folks holding they holding. Okay, let's stop. I want to show you guys something, and I'm not going to tell you how to think. I'm going to give you my PerTspective. Again, this is my opinion on what's really happening. So let's take a look. First up, what we got? First up, we're going to bring up, when did racism become, like a issue? And I know you want to say racism back in slavery, way back in the days. Hold that thought. I forgot, there is one clip I forgot to bring in, and I'll just go ahead and mention it. You can Google it, take the time. The first typed book, 1904, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, the Huckleberry Finn guy. So that's the first typed book. And since none of you, including self, have seen handwritten books in the library, everything we've seen is typed. So I want you to remember that, 1904, typed books. So where are we going? Oh, do you want to go here first? Let's do something else first. I don't want to show you this one first. I think I should go here first. No, let's go deeper. Let's get into this water fountain situation. I want to show you something about water fountains that I'm not sure if everybody knows or has thought about or taken the time to, should even consider the possibility of this. So here we are with water fountains. 1906, as you can see, was the introduction, let's say, to America, the water fountain. So we had the water fountain come to America in 1906. And, the reason I bring that up is because we remember the stories of the separated water fountains, the black and white, the bathrooms, black and white. That's what we remember from history. We don't talk about, were they ever unified water fountains? Well, if 1906 is when the water fountains appeared, when did they become segregated, if at all, or were they always segregated? Strange. Looks like they were segregated in the 1950s. So that's an important time in American history, the 1950s. I want you to remember that. We're just finishing up World War II. We have the second term of, is it Johnson? One of the president's second term is just now beginning. Now, he's a Democratic president now. I want you to remember that too. This is a Democrat, not a Republican. This is 1950. He took office in 1945 after Johnson died. Lyndon B. Johnson died. I think Johnson died. And then the other guy took office. What was his name? Truman. Truman took office. So I want you to remember that. So we have segregation, 1950s. So from 1906 to 1950s, we were drinking out of the same water fountains, using the same bathrooms, going to the same restaurants, marrying, hugging, kissing, loving each other in America. That's what it appears to be, based on what I just read when the segregation started. Now, hold that thought. Before you say anything, hold that thought. We're going to go to the next clip, and I want to show you something else. Because all these things are important. Every last one of them. I want to show you something else that happened around that same time, okay? So we're looking at a 1945 president is being replaced. And so now we have, let's see what we got next. Here. List of World War II prisoners, war camps in the United States. Now, again, look at the dates down here at the bottom. That is let me make my screen bigger so I can see it. 1943. So we have in the United States at the end of World War II, there were prisoners of war camps, including 175 branch camps serving 511 area camps, containing over 425,000 prisoners of war, mostly German. The camps were located all over the United States, but were mostly in the South. Due to their higher expense of heating the barracks in cold areas. I thought Germans like cold, but you know, that's just me. So now if 425,000 were brought over here as prisoners of war, you never heard about that, did you? I didn't hear about it in school. I heard about the prisoners of war from Japan and how they were put in internment camps, and then they were kept there until the end of the war, and then they were given $20,000, saying, we sorry. I never heard about the German prisoners of war being put in camps, especially 425,000 of them. And then you dig deeper and you find out that that's not all that happened. They actually put those people to work. Yes, they did. They put those people to work. So let's go and find out, what did they do? What did they do when they put those people to work? Well, I have a couple of opinions about that, and then I got some facts. Now, a lot of those prisoners of war were actually put into some of the better jobs. They worked with the military, they really did a lot. So what we're looking at is 400,000 Germans landed in America between 1942 and 1945 after their capture in Europe and North Africa. Wow. So we are sitting here thinking the Germans were defeated, and we never heard what actually happened to them. Well, they were shipped to the United States. That's what happened to them. Now, why is that important? Because just like I just showed you in this last one, they were shipped to the South. Now, where do we have our largest population of racist Klan members, tiki torches, Nazi members, Did I say Nazi? Did I say? I did say Nazi members. That's in the South. I was speaking to one of our elders, and quit calling them that. One of these more mature gentlemen, Dr. Henderson, and he said he remembers having one of those camps out in Clinton, Mississippi, where they had German prisoners of war, and they were marrying into the city. So if we're never told about this, and you have 425 that they actually tell you about, and what I know about history is once you're free, you can bring your family over. So that's 425,000 that they tell you about. Well, that's probably 1 million. And so when you add in mom, dad, grandmama, kids, grandkids, they probably let every one of those individuals bring over 6 to 7 people, because we never heard about it. So they did what they wanted to do. So while we're sitting here thinking that it was just the Japanese prisoners of war, no, it wasn't. It was the German prisoners of war. They brought them over to work with the military in the government. They were making televisions. Look at the dates on this stuff, y'all. Now, I'm going to show you something. It's probably even better than the last everything I show you. So now we got Germans coming into America, and then we have, let me pop this one back up again. We have the Germans coming into America. Remember that date now. Remember that date. And then we have segregation of water fountains not too long after. Now, I got a lot more than just that right there now. You know that. So you might as well get ready. That's just me repeating stuff because I want to burn this into your head that if the water fountain was 1906, but the segregation didn't start until the 1950s, something happened before the 1950s. And that's what I'm trying to tell you all. Something did happen before the 1950s. Your government decided that it was a good idea to bring them on over here. That's what your government decided to do. They said it's a great idea to bring some of the smartest people over in the world who are trying to take over the world to America. So it makes me question, did we really win the war, or did we bring some German prisoners of war to America and have them working with our military, and somehow they took over? Now, for me and the way I think that's very possible. I think it's extremely possible. And why do I think that? Because if you're not aware of their capabilities, they could build a bomb and then threaten to blow up the White House. That's what they could do. They could build a bomb, threaten to build a White House, and then tell you, we're in charge now, and we're going to take over. And what we're going to do, we're going to end the war and make it look like you won, even though we're in charge. How are we going to do that? We're going to drop a bomb on one of our allies. Because remember, the Germans felt like blonde hair, blue eyes, even though Hitler did not have either of those. That was the superior race. Remember, they were trying to the superior race thing. They didn't even look like that. But that's what they were selling, that dream. So if you think the Japanese were their allies and their friends, then you don't understand how war works and how taking over the world works. See, I'm going to drop a bomb on them, and it takes the eyes off of me. But it also puts the attention on me, because now I'm the strongest and the baddest, and I'll blow your ass up. That is a threat to the world. So now if we're going to look at something, what happened in America? Remember, I was telling you, we were drinking out of the same water fountain until the 1950s. Well, what happened? You let the Germans in. You brought them in, actually. You said, come on in, baby. And you put them all in the South and other places around the country. Why did you do that? Were you threatened? Was a threat put on the country? And that's why we're currently now looking at this chart. And if you look at this chart, then it makes a lot of sense to 1942 to 1945. They started bringing them in. Johnson dies 1945. Did he? Or is there something else? But the Manhattan Institute says that mentions of racism in American books really didn't start taking place until around 1960s. So around the 1950s, isn't that around the time we started going to school a lot more? You know, we having some issues right now. We're going to have to fix that. Let me take a look and see what's going on. What's going on with you? We can fix that easy. Give me a second. All right, that should be fixed. Now, once again. So now, if you're looking at this map here, then you're looking at not this map, this chart. You're seeing that racism has been going up since a certain time in history. And then it kind of makes a lot of sense for me to look at this and say, that seems right to me. And here's why. My grandfather used to talk about going to South Carolina all the time. He had a job in South Carolina building concrete slabs for airports. So he was like master concrete finisher guy. And so he would drive from Mississippi all the way to South Carolina to do that. So for me, I'm thinking Alabama, Georgia, dude, how did you get there without a problem? But I was thinking Jim Crow. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking that everybody was racist back then, and there was no way that a dark-skinned man could drive across the country and go to work. But then when I started talking to my elders or my superiors, I'll say, I started to find out, well, guess what? Your mom at 14 went to Chicago with her cousins, 16 and 17, in a car, drove by themselves. And I'm sitting here like, what kind of granddaddy and grandmama would let them do that? Well, it was not racist, clearly, because my mom said they got pulled over in Arkansas. Police officer took them to jail. However, they only had to stay until the bill for speeding was paid. Once that bill was paid, they're free to go. The officer even took one of the young ladies, my mom's cousin, took her to the bus station because she didn't want to wait that long. You know, it wasn't a digital world in the 1960s. So they had to Western Union that money to them, which took a while. So one cousin took a bus home. My mom and the other cousin waited until the money got there, and the officer let them go. It wasn't a hanging, raping, beating, killing, murdering going on. So you ask yourself, what was going on then for those people in Arkansas not to be racist? My mom and them being allowed to drive to Chicago by themselves, totally unaware of the crazy racism that's taking place in the country, unless the crazy racism was not taking place in the country, as we were led to believe. Because if we do remember, and a lot of us do remember, our grandparents did very well with work. Our great-grandparents, some of them owned businesses, had hundreds of acres of land. So if all of these things are true, we know they're true. What happened is what Project Humanity is fighting to find out. What happened to change it? Because it's not making any sense. It doesn't make sense for my grandfather to let my mother and her cousins drive to Chicago in 1960. It doesn't make sense. She was 14 years old. It doesn't make sense in 64 when she did it. It doesn't make sense at all. So how are you going to tell me that this stuff makes sense today? So if we're looking at the water fountain segregation taking place, if we're looking at these racial numbers going up for mentions of racism, mentions of it, And remember, we're going to talk about that book thing later, about 1904, first handwritten book. First typed book. We're going to discuss that. So again, here's another chart. Now, this is what we want to discuss about. When was health care becoming a problem for dark-skinned people? Well, it didn't start out that way. According to this chart, we remember what recently happened. We remember the recent news. We don't remember your grandmama had 9 kids. Not a problem with any of them. Didn't hear about any of them dying. Your grandmother. Miss Sally and them, 13 children. Not a problem with any of them. No special needs kids born. No, nothing. Nothing. Very few problems came from birth. When they try to tell you we didn't have as good, the doctors weren't as good back then. The healthcare wasn't as good back then. Medicine wasn't as good back then. Well, I knew a lot of 100-year-old people back then. Big Papa, Big Mama, both of them were over 100 until they went to the doctors. So there were a lot more older people then than there are now. So they're telling us that healthcare has gotten better. No, that's propaganda. That's a story they keep feeding you, just like they keep feeding the rest of these stories to you. Old Town Road. If I repeat it over and over again, guess what? You're going to remember it. You're going to remember it. I'm going to program you into Old Town Road. You're going to love it. When did the problems happen with the money? Look, this is just stopping at the 60s. My battery getting low again that fast. So again, we're looking at when did it happen? What happened? Your government happened, people. The Democrats try to play that game with you, but they're the ones who brought the Germans into America in the early 40s and 50s and created this problem. You can think they're innocent. I see one bird with 2 wings. I see a movie that I'm watching. I'm watching Trump play the villain while Biden tries to play the hero. The 81-year-old hero who spent 2 weeks getting ready for a show at an inaugural, at the State of the Union. That's a show. And if you think those people in the audience weren't, a part of the show, yelling and his quick rebuttals back planned, you don't think that's a movie taking place. Well, you should remember that Donald Trump refilmed his entrance to the White House during COVID. Like, these things they're telling you we're doing these things right here in your face, people, and you're not paying attention. So we're going to do whatever we want to because you're not paying attention, and you're not going to say anything. So we're going to do whatever we want to because you're not paying attention. So I've been paying attention, and I've been trying to get this information to you guys, and I'm trying to let you know, look, they divided you so that they could conquer you. So if you're fighting for women's rights, if you're fighting for men's rights, if you're fighting for dark-skinned black rights, if you're fighting for light-skinned white rights, you fighting for Hispanic rights, if you're fighting for gay and lesbian rights, if you're fighting for higher wages, if you're fighting for freedom of religion, you fighting for freedom of speech, you fighting for anything, stop fighting. Stop fighting. That's what they want you to do. They want you to fight for those things. Those things are ours anyway. And the fact that they're not giving them to them means we should stop until they do. That's all it means. It's like, what would you do if your employer stopped paying you? You would stop working, right? You wouldn't go to work anymore. If your employer stopped paying you, you're not going to work. So as a country, we're paying taxes, which we shouldn't be paying, especially where they're going to other countries to fight wars so that these people who took over our country can take over those people's countries. We're helping fund the most evil, corrupt system in probably the world history. And it's here, it's right here in your face. So I'm gonna show it to you again. just so that we go out on this note and not any other note. This is what happened to you people. This is when they decided to TV program you after 1942 to 1945, when they were bringing in all those Germans. Those Germans were making televisions. That's what happened. So we have to stop this, guys. Stop fighting. They winning because we fighting. Hey, that's the PerTspective. That's all the time I got. My battery dead. I didn't bring my charger. So I'll holler at y'all later. Real. Let's quit fighting. Love one another deeply. It'll help. Let's do a quick